disliking completely to make sure concrete going into SummerSlam was to throw the screw job out again, because it's worth pointing out that although Shawn had come back, John, the whole Bret Hart thing had never been forgotten by most of the Canadian fans. And sometimes, depending on where he was or who he was against, you'd hear the crowd start to chant, "You screwed Bret."
Yeah.
It was a sort of ongoing thing. Even at WrestleMania 20, it happened during the match. And that's probably down to Benoit as well. But there were times where that just never seemed to go away. So he kind of had fun poking a stick with that, if you will, to see if that would go well. Now, obviously, we are going to be watching this match going into. I've got to ask you, John. Did you said that you were sort of out of wrestling at this time? Was this an event that you remember watching, or is this something you went back on later, or is this one of the ones that you did manage to catch?
Yeah, I think I don't believe I watched it live.
Right.
This is probably one of the ones I went back and watched at a later date, probably that same year, if I'm honest with you. But I think, like most wrestling fans, when kind of life takes over and when work and family takes over, wrestling is always there, and it's always been there for me. But for a period of time, it was kind of more on the sidelines, as I mentioned, and kind of getting married, building a family, buying houses, building a career. Sometimes takes precedent, and you kind of think, well, right, okay, that's another 12 or 14 hour day at work done. You just kind of like, come home, go to bed, get up, go to work again, and wrestling kind of takes a back seat for a while, which it did around this time. I was still reasonably aware of what was going on, still reasonably aware of the feuds. As I mentioned to you off air, and I've probably said to my listeners many times, I was a huge fan of the Power Slam magazine, which I got from 1993 all the way through to when it folded about 5 or 6 years ago. So I was buying it constantly for over 20 years. So that kind of kept me up to date with the feuds and what was going on. So I was always getting the information, always watching the big pay-per-views, but I don't think I watched this one live. I think I caught up on this one at a later date.
Right, fair enough. Yeah, no worries there. And just to let you all know, in the time John was explaining about his time away from wrestling there, that yes, that was the year that Shawn did the Bret Hart fake Raw return, where he looked stunned. And this, it made perfect sense because it just wound fans up even more, and I think it just cemented. Now, do you think, John, that although doing things like that Vince had any doubts that perhaps the crowd may go a different way? Obviously, at this point, we're at 2005. Now, it's not quite as it is today, where you just don't know what the hell is going to happen and how people will react when two guys go out there, quite frankly. But this is a time where we've had Hogan and Rock, and they never see, maybe that kind of reaction at that extent coming. But we're at another time where possibly Shawn's been this face, and obviously Hogan. Do you think Hulk Hogan is just the one guy, John, that just he's always going to be loved by that WWF crowd? Are they that loyal with him?
I think that's the most intriguing thing about this whole feud to me. Because we will see in a minute where we see the entrances, and the crowd are quite split to start off with. The crowd are quite split, and you've got a certain demographic, a certain dynamic of the audience that's cheering for Michaels, and then of course it's fairly obvious that you've got the kids and a certain portion of the audience that are cheering for Hogan. They both get fantastic receptions coming into this match, but I know that going into this match they were trying to build a heel versus face dynamic. Now, I think one of the original ideas going into this feud, and I think certainly Shawn Michaels has alluded to this, so they wanted a kind of a babyface feud, didn't they? Babyface versus babyface feud, and there weren't going to be any heels, and just to kind of see who would come out on top. I know that more than one match was mentioned, in a series of matches between Hogan and Michaels. But I think once, because as I said earlier, I think they approached Shawn Michaels about kind of bringing back the late 90s or the mid 90s kind of arrogant, cocky, snot-nosed heel Shawn Michaels, and I think once they decided once they agreed they weren't going to do the face versus face thing, then this was kind of the route that Michaels was taking. But you're still always going to have that portion of the audience that feel that Michaels is being the newer and the younger of the two stars. They're the ones that a certain demographic are going to cheer for, and then you got another portion of the audience where of the frame of mind that Hogan is the legend, the icon, can't do no wrong, and we're always going to cheer for Hogan. So I know that if I was in the crowd for SummerSlam 2005, I would have cheered for Shawn Michaels because I feel that he's kind of more relatable for me. As for Hogan, I was a massive fan of his in the late 80s and early 90s, but then I kind of fell out of love with Hogan when he joined WCW and all that malarkey. So I felt that he was the more dare I say it, washed up individual that probably didn't need to be in this position in a main event of a big show. I can understand it from a kind of a ticket selling standpoint, from a pay-per-view buy rate standpoint, two big legends. But even here, I mean, what Hogan would have been in his mid 50s? No, kind of early 50s, maybe. Yeah. So I probably would be more on the side of Shawn Michaels, although they were trying to portray him as a heel. But say it's the heel and the face dynamic leading to this and in the match itself that really, really fascinates me. And that kind of plays into the whole story of the match as well.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I don't know who I would have gone with, to be honest with you. Because that whole Bret Hart thing actually wound me up in the night, I reckon. So I might have pulled for Hogan. Even though my generation is much more in the 90s, but
yes,
that might have driven me mad just to know how Shawn Michaels was back then. But then Hogan also annoyed me with Bret at WrestleMania 9, so it's like it's a real hit and miss.
But you've got to admit that Shawn Michaels was better as a heel. I mean, certainly as far as I was concerned, he was more entertaining, more captivating. Had better dialogue, especially when he was in front of a camera, in front of a microphone, when he was a heel compared to when he was a babyface. So I found him much more interesting, much more dynamic. As a babyface, I always found Shawn Michaels as quite generic, to be honest with you, and maybe not as funny when he was trying to do all the funny stuff as a babyface compared to when he was turning it up as a heel, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, especially DX Part 2. It's driven me mad. Okay, well, let's get to the match then, folks, because I think we've spoken enough about it. Let's get into it. So you want to fire up your WWE networks and you want to find SummerSlam 2005. It's a pretty straightforward find, this one. And then you want to go to the time of 2 hours, 19 minutes and 52 seconds. So hit the pause button when you guys find that. It's 2 hours, 19 minutes and 52 seconds. And on the count of one, we're going to hit play. So here we go. 3, 2, 1. And you should now hear, or see, sorry, here. That's because I can't just go on. But you'll hear the Hulk Hogan, Real American. Sorry, not Real American. Shawn Michaels. Oh God, I'm all over the place on this one, John. For some reason, I just thought it was Hogan coming out first. I don't know why I thought that, but I just remember maybe I'm thinking of 2006 because I remember there's that huge flag, but I'm not sure if it's this one or that one.
It is this one, yeah.
It is this one, okay, yeah.
Yeah, because I saw it back for the first time in a long time earlier on, but so here he seems to come out as a. To be honest with you, I thought that Shawn Michaels started off as a babyface in the first part of this match and then kind of progressed into the heel. But he's getting chilled. He's doing hand slaps there. And like I said earlier on, that the crowd response between these two wrestlers were pretty 50-50 as they made their entrances. So that kind of told you that they were popular with the vast majority of the fans either way, to be honest with you. And here, looks great.
And he does. And this so just obviously to make sure that people know a little bit more about this one, because this is again this is from Washington, this one, and this SummerSlam, John, I do remember this because it had the whole Matt Hardy and Edge business going on, and of course Edge was like the Money in the Bank guy. We still didn't know much about the Money in the Bank back then, how it was all going to work, but he had that, and there was quite a lot of feuds and payoffs towards the end. She had the whole Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio custody.
That was the ladder match, I believe. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, what a
Yeah.
match to have for custody of Dominic at the time on this one. And we had Kurt Angle and Eugene, who you mentioned earlier. And what a match that is for him. Randy Orton, a return match with The Undertaker. John Cena and Chris Jericho, which was a really good match. And then the match before this was Batista. Of course, he was Washington-based, up against John Bradshaw Layfield in this one. As we're now, this is the big anticipation, isn't it, John, that they love to do here for this
That's
one.
it.
Still, the signs are still very much out for Hogan. I mean, very old school signs as well that people have brought to this one to cheer him here. So yeah, this SummerSlam was pretty, compact and big.
It was stacked.
And sort of more quality than quantity. I mean, there was only 9 matches, but they all seemed like they had some significant payoffs towards the end.
Absolutely.
Which is pretty cool. So here we see Hogan, real American, and then you're going to see this crazy shot. I mean, it's pretty iconic, I suppose. They do use that quite a lot, don't they? When you do look the whole looking back at Hogan.
This is the one where the big flag does drop from the ceiling. It's absolutely huge.
Yeah, imagine that.
That is a great scene, isn't it? Look at that.
It's like, how the hell,
doing his pose.
Who rings up and says, right, we need this incredibly gigantic Old Glory flag in the back. Can we have one, please? Who's making that damn thing? My goodness. Yeah, and that just comes down. I mean, it's very good. Surprised they haven't used it anymore, to be honest with you.
No, you see Shawn Michaels there. He was doing like a shoveling motion in the ring. What do you think that means? He was kind of like doing some sort of shoveling or some sort of digging motion.
Like he's not going to be buried. I don't know. Because he did he would like his interviews post this. He kept mentioning like he wasn't going to lay down, and there was politics about the results and whatnot, which we will get to after this. But I don't know if he was trying to do that. I mean, he certainly, with Michaels, he was smart enough to work for different layers of the audience. He was trying to. That's obviously something to people that are more insiders, marks, and know a little bit more. I'm sure he would do things like that.
Yeah.
Just to sort of like get people thinking differently. But I think even if this had been babyface versus babyface, I got a feeling it still would have been Hogan overall. I think in this one, I don't think it would have been split like Warrior and Hogan or anything like that. Just because, like I said earlier, Shawn, even though he'd come back as babyface, he still had those little groans from the audience now and then that would like to tease him on certain stuff with the whole screw job business. But it was cool to see him as the heel, because now, there's no worries with it. And obviously the reaction is going to be what it is. The only way it could go terribly wrong is if, of course, Hogan gets totally booed out of the building. But obviously that didn't happen.
Yeah, I've got to say Hogan looks pretty good here.
Yeah.
He's like I said, he's probably in his early 50s, but he still looks pretty stacked. Looks like he's ready for the match.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, obviously he wasn't going to be able to do anything crazy. I think the days of Hogan, doing too much had sort of gone. But he could still do enough at this point. He could have a good match. With Shawn Michaels, you can't really always go wrong, John, with him, because he's so good. He could probably make a broomstick look good. He's that good. He's so good whoever he works with. So he's in with somebody that I think he probably didn't have to worry about Hogan coming off or looking too bad. I think if it had been somebody else, I'm sure a year later when he faced Orton, there might have been a bit more of a debate about that.
Well, some might actually say, and we'll get to this as the match progresses, but some might actually say that Shawn Michaels was wrestling himself in this match anyway.
Yeah, we'll definitely get to that that whole thing. So yeah, we see this nice. I like the fact that they started off slow here. They haven't touched. They've got all the fans invested. This is exactly what they should be doing. This is how to do it. When you're two big names like this, you don't have to just go straight into it. You can
take your time.
Take your time, let the fans feel it. Obviously, the whole moment here, this is so Hogan-ish for me. This whole looking around at the audience
from side to side, yeah.
Side to